Hey, what's up guys? I assume you've read the title, so we all know why we're here. We're going to cut through all that junk and get you straight to playing your game, hopefully. Because this beast took me about 15 hours, 8 consecutive hours, and then 7 bits and pieces, all that other fun, nasty junk. Anyway, we have our trusty notepad down here, help us cut through some of the rambling, so we'll jump right to that. Check base game. What that means is you're going to make sure that your game runs without any plugins or extensions or anything. You're going to make sure that it just runs strictly Morrowind. So if we have Steam, then we'll go here and play. You go to your data files and everything except for Morrowind, Tribunal, and Blood Moon. Or if you don't have these two, then most of them won't work. Like most of the mods are going to be for these, since it's so old. Game of the Year has gone down in price so much, but only these three are going to be checked. You're going to uncheck everything else. So after we do that, then you're going to hit play. If that doesn't play, then you'll need to go, and if you're on Steam, then you'll want to go right click, properties, local files, verify integrity of game files. After that finishes, then it'll say either it didn't find anything, and if that's the case, then that's kind of like, well, if it didn't find anything, then why is it running? But that could also be a possibility. You may just want to completely uninstall it and then re-download and install it, let it do all of its stuff, and then it should work then. Also try installing it in a different directory, and it'll make sure all that stuff is checked off. And after that, then it should be able to load. Then you'll go through and start with your check this, make sure it works, make sure this works, make sure that plugin works. You also make sure that your drivers and libraries, examples of drivers, if you're in NVIDIA, then you go to geforce.com/drivers and you'll select all this, search, and then download your drivers from there. Libraries are stuff like, if you have like VC distribution, 2003, 2008, stuff like that. This isn't really one that would really help. I'm just like, oh, VC 2003, or Visual Studio 2003, Morrowind for 2003. This is just an example. You'll be going like someplace like Microsoft. Make sure your DirectX is update, because even though things like this may have been after Morrowind was released, a lot of the mods and I think some of the tools like the overhauls will use libraries from later, obviously, to make the game look better, because as you saw before, my game is extremely heavily modded, which is probably why it was like 15 hours of troubleshooting. I have like, see, where's my wire mash? It tells me we have 185 mods, so I'm like, we're gonna play through Morrowind, we're gonna do its due diligence, and we're gonna make it look as good as it can for like a 15, is it 15? No, 16-year-old game. So yeah, after you do all of that, then you want to make sure that your mods, if they have the Morrowind script extender, you need to make sure that it has the appropriate plugin checked. Let me see if I can find that. That wouldn't be in there. Data files, and it's in here somewhere. It'll be WMSE, like demo or something. Oh well, it'd be easier to find it on here. I'm gonna make sure that this one is checked in this list. And I made the mistake of not having that in there, because I thought since it said demo, then it was going to be like, oh, it demonstrates something. Like you get a demo model with something and it's like it's a trial version or something, like demo, why do we need demo? But yeah, make sure that is in your data files and you have it checked there. So after that, if you have the code patch, which a lot of the overhauls make use of the code patch, fixing various things and giving you options of various things to do with, like over shoulder third person and things like that, then if you try go to your Morrowind directory, or even like the launch Morrowind off of here, if you have it through Steam, you'll get this error right here. This Steam error, application load error, whatever those numbers. And that happens whether you try to launch the exe here, or the launcher, or go through here. What you want to do for that is make sure if you have it through Steam, you go through here. You know, it doesn't really make a great deal of sense to me either, because I'm like, if you can load it through here, obviously it should just be able to redirect itself back to Steam and be able to load from there. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm not sure why it's not the case. I just know that it's not the case. So I'm like, you can try to understand why things don't work, and when that doesn't work, then just understand that things work a certain way. And I kind of settled for that at about the 8th or 9th hour when I found out that was why a lot of my scripts weren't working. That also goes back to the MWSE and Steam. So even though it has launched Morrowind here, you're going to leave this alone, leave it running in the background, minimize it or something, and then you'll go here to your Steam. If you don't have the Steam version, that shouldn't be a problem, but I do, so I found that to be an issue. After that, you can go through and get wire mesh. Wire mesh has lots of interesting things it can do. First and foremost is fixing your master files. You want to make sure that all of these are green. You find some like these, I have these, but I don't use them, so if they're like a orangish or yellow color, then I'll use this as an example. It'll have these of the same color right here. You'll click this and then you'll click save. Then it'll turn green. Make sure that all of these are green. It can also, if it has problems later in the Morrowind graphics extender, you can also right click and it'll repair your references for you. Also, you don't want to, hopefully the references aren't wrong with Morrowind ESM. I just happen to be there, mouse there, click it. So yeah, you can go through and do that if it gives you any errors along the way. Your saves, if your saves aren't working, then you can also right click, repair all, update map, and clear debris cells and such like that. So after that, you go to the graphics extender. Where is it? Oh, it's up here. I like to run this just as it's more of a personal preference. Just run things as administrator, so they don't have permissions going all awry if you have user account controls set up. I don't. I just do that by it's like take as many things out of the equation that could go wrong as possible, and we'll do that. So here, if you have mods like Morrowind graphics extender or any of the other mods that rely on distant land, you want to go to and do distant land, and when you click that, then you'll have this little button down here. I'm not sure why it doesn't show up. It just doesn't. But when you click that and it starts going through it, then sometimes you'll have errors. You know, but why are these errors here? But when you go through and start doing I've noticed a lot of the verts. I'm not sure if it's just certain ones or if they didn't install properly from Nexus Mod Manager. We'll get to that in a second. But I noticed that sometimes it'd be having errors. I'm like, why are these here? These obviously are supposed to be here, and it thinks they're supposed to be here. So what's going on here? I go through and look. There's a lot of the textures that it was trying to access that it wasn't able to access. I sorted it by type, and then when I went down through here, and it would have at the bottom there would be a bunch of symlinks. I had an actual folder. I just took all of them because the symlinks were invalid. They'd be like you double click it or right click it. I'll find it here in a second. Named them not fixed textures, they were broken textures. Where's that? Broken textures. They'd be like this. They'd have symlink, and then you just say file location, and then it would be missing. And that's the reason why Distant Lands couldn't use that. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. And put all of those in there for broken textures, and then I did it through process of elimination. I went through the BSAs, and looked through them like that. I actually had this one, where are they? Right, I actually had this program, BSA browser, from, you know, Bethesda modding games, and they use all BSAs and everything, so you can probably find this either, judging by the symbol, it's probably from a Fallout, but they should have variants like, you know, TES edit, Fallout 4 edit, you know, works the same way, they use the same archives. I think they used a different version of archives for special edition, but as long as you get it for, especially if it's on the Morrowind Nexus, then that should be okay. Just as long as it can open them and view all the tree and the files, it should be fine. But what I did from here was I have this over here, and you go down to not step textures, shaders, textures. Like I said, I put them all in a folder called broken textures, and when they were fixed, then we put them in fixed, and then when they were still broke, then fix now, fix, and then going through and doing a bunch of that. So there was like almost 200 that I had to do by hand, but you know, it's like you can either do it or you can either not play the game. So it's like, I wish there was an automated function for this. However, there was not. I would just go through here and see. The first fixed file was for, I went through the BSAs like in load order kind of. So I would load Morrowind BSA, go down to textures, and like look over here and look over there and cross-reference them like that. So yeah, like first one was AI Heather. You'd find that, and you click on it, and then I'd keep going down the list. Just control click, keep going down the list, and then once we had gotten all of them in this one, then we'd say right click, extract, and then we'd put it in I put it in a temporary holding, I think, yeah, just so I could copy it all over at once. Made it a little easier. I put it in fixed textures, but you could just go ahead and put it in the textures folder. That's where it wound up going eventually. You'd say select folder, and then it would put it in there, and then we didn't have any more problems from that. And there was like, I think if you had some other mods, then you would have things that weren't in the original BSA but were also broken links. Not sure, but if it ever comes like that and you can't find it in the BSAs, like any of them, then I had found someone who said you can just delete the symlinks, and then it'll prompt you like, this one was not found, would you like to continue, and then you just check yes, and that seemed to work for them, so I just figured I'd throw that in there. Going through here, yeah, that's all for that. The Tamriel rebuilt file patcher, where is that? Should be right here. Double click that. I found that this was a little bit not just self-explanatory, so excuse me. Open files. It wasn't very self-explanatory, so I figured I'd go through, because I was actually using this for the wrong, like, not for the wrong stuff, but like the wrong way for a while. It was a little bit weird. And the way that you use this one is you go through data files, and you'll find all the ones called TR, where are they? TR underscore. That's for the Tamriel rebuilt ones. Then you can patch those files, and they'll be good from anything that should be wrong with them. It's kind of, the end process is self-explanatory, but I wasn't really sure. I thought it was just like, because, where is it? It's like, it opens like this. It opens like this by default, and I'm like, oh, maybe it already knows because it already has this checked. We just say patch, then it would like go 100% full, and then I'm like, oh, we're done. I'm like, no, I figured out you had to do that, and then you had to open files because you don't see this box really, or this button at all, to be able to know that that's how you're supposed to use it. But yeah, that's how you do that. Just covering all our bases here. MLux and Nexus Mod Manager. So when you first get the overhaul, you'll have this program called MLux, which is like kind of loot for Morrowind, because I went and checked specifically because I'm like, loot's your best friend, loot knows everything, loot doesn't have Morrowind. So I'm like, that doesn't sound right, but no, that's the case. You just have MLux and Nexus Mod Manager. So you'll want to go and you'll have a batch file down here for MLux, and then if the proposed load order is different than the way it is, this will not be faded out. You'll click that and then you'll exit out of it. Pretty self-explanatory, right? And the only reason that I actually was kind of forced to use this instead of Nexus Mod Manager is because for some reason, even though I used it to install almost all the mods that were available for, even some of the ones that weren't available for download, you know, you get the raw or the 7-zip file and you drag it in there and it loads it or installs it for you. Some of the plugins didn't show up. I think they're all here now, but when I was first installing all the mods and everything, there would be like, this would say, like for example, these one right here, they would say 193, 187, 143, except there would only be like 80 here. There would only be 80 ESM and ESPs here. So it was kind of weird, and seems to have worked itself out now, but that's, I'm like, so you get the load order right, and you get all that right, and it's still not working? Why not? I don't know. If you have that problem, just try MLux, make sure that the load order is sorted out through that. It seemed to get all the ones, and where did it go? There's Steam, don't do that. And I also had to double check a bunch of times just to make sure that it was everything that I wanted was checked on here, because sometimes it would, since it didn't recognize these, it would overwrite the plugins file, and half of these would be unchecked. You'd have like 200 mods and only 100 of them would be checked, and I was like, why are these? And then you have to go manually check, double click, double click, double click, double click. It was very, very tedious, and just make sure that if you have things that aren't loading, make sure all your data files are loaded. And the last one is eliminating non-essential plugins. This was a fun one. And that basically means if something isn't working right and you can live without it, then just do that. Because, where did it go? The plugin conflict detector. This thing was very, very useful. You know, you go to Google, you type in your problem, Google usually finds you somebody with a similar problem, who had somebody who knew a guy that had an answer, right? But sometimes they only give you bits of the pieces or the next clue in the treasure hunt, and then you have to go on off from that. But this one was actually really, I won't say it was easy to use. I'm saying if you have experience with Creation Kit, it's kind of easy to use a little bit, but it was mainly process of elimination. This guy was pretty helpful. I'll see if I can get it to pull up here. We put it right here. The way we did with this was we were getting a crash file, not a crash file, a crash dialog that was like, this wasn't loading because of this in something overworld. So what we did for this, did new check, where did it go? Choose plugins. And then what we did here was, where did it go? We just drag all of these down here, except for the ones we're not using, and then if you let it go, control, and then keep dragging all the way down here, open. After everything is opened, we'll just full screen it for this anyway. And I found this little search, what is that? Magnifying glass. It means search, but it's a magnifying glass icon. So find object and loaded files. What I was getting was, it was talking about, what was it? Red Nia. Yeah, I was talking about Red Nia, so I'm like, it can't load that one. This will take a minute. It can't load that one, so it, crap, lost my train of thought. It said that it couldn't load that one, that location, because of an entry and an overworld application. So I'm like, we got two key things out of that. The Ald Redania, I didn't put Ald, but it's basically like, oh, we know what you're talking about, so we'll just put that in there for you. We also get all everything listed from this, and it will tell you the ESP files that conflict and overwrite with that. And this is the one that it referred to. So I'm like, oh, that didn't really give me anything definitive, but then I remembered it said this right here, btb underscore main underscore overworld. So I went and typed that in. I didn't put it on case sensitive, so I'm just like, I just try to match things, just, take everyththing out of the equation that could possibly go wrong, so if anything does go wrong, it's not your fault, or it was, that you did all you could do, is basically what I'm saying. So yeah, case sensitive, even though it wasn't checked for case sensitive, but then it came up with this one. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was getting problems with this script right here. That's what it said. It said it couldn't load the expression for scripts in Aldredania from the btb underscore main underscore overworld. So it was all about this plugin right here. All I had to do was find my Steam again. Steam data files, or yeah, Steam launcher data files. Go down through here and where'd it go? Yeah, I just went down through here and unchecked the Better Music System, because I'm like, that it goes back to where we were at with eliminating non-essential plugins. I'm like, this came as part of an overhaul. I'm like, oh, Better Music System, that sounds like it could be cool, but if it's causing problems where I literally can't play my game, I'll play the game without music and just run like a fantasy playlist from YouTube in the background for my music, okay? So just like eliminate things that you can live without, especially if they're causing problems. So that's normally where I start my process of elimination here. So if I'm like Windows Glow would be cool, but if I feel like if the game is crashing or not loading or won't take a save or won't take a clean save and it's continuously doing this, then we start going through systematically all 184 of our mods. Oh, that sounds like a pain. And then we start unchecking things to see which one. And normally I don't do one by one. Normally I'll do like groups of 5. So I'm like, we go 5, still won't load, 5, still won't load. Or you can do the other way around, which is you uncheck everything and start checking 1 by 1 or 5 by 5, however you want to do it. Okay, it still loads. Okay, it still loads. Oh, it's not loading now. We know it's one of these 5. So that's all I got for you. If this video helps you, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date with more of our videos on fixing various things and tutorials and all that fun stuff. I thought about doing Let's Plays, thought about it, but I'm just like, I don't do, like, anyway, if you guys want to leave, I'll keep rambling for a few minutes, and then you can then you can leave, or you can leave now if you like. But anyway, I would do Let's Plays like, oh, let's play Morrowind in 2018 with all these graphics, because it does actually look really good. But it's like, I'll do that, and then I'll like I'll start playing, and then well, I'll have family over, and they'll want to do stuff, and I'll want to keep playing, so I'll like half watch TV or a movie with them and half be playing, and it's not very conducive to a theater experience to have a movie playing and this guy's narrating what he's doing on Let's Plays, you know. So that's my dilemma. That's why I've tried Let's Plays, but they never really stick. So I'm just like, you know what? I might do random Let's Plays, but that's really like that's not really helpful to anyone watching. And like, if you want something random to do, you can go watch cat videos or something. But yeah, that's why I don't do Let's Plays. But anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.